Good day everyone. I am Jennaiah Dominique Oximoso, a research presenter from Palawan State University, and today I will be presenting my policy amendment proposal, which is entitled Unlocking Potential, Addressing Poverty and Unemployment Through Equity-Driven Employment Initiatives for Marginalized Workers. Now, despite the numerous live programs and employment initiatives launched over the years, it is said that Filipinos remain underemployed and vulnerable to job insecurity by stating na marami pa rin sa atin, including utility workers, lack access to resources and skills development opportunities, and it is because of their chances for better paying jobs and social mobility. In fact, according to the latest statistical data of Philippine Trading Economics, as of October 2024, the unemployment rate in the Philippines is still increasing slightly from 3.7% to 3.9% from last September, although it saw an improvement dropping to 63.3% from last 63.5% in the previous year, in which this implies that even though more people are gaining employment from last year, it still doesn't resolve the gap in terms of opportunities between those who are skilled and those who lack the skills. Therefore, today I will be discussing a pressing socio-economic issue that continues to challenge the Philippines, which is poverty and unemployment, especially among marginalized sectors. Now, one inspiring case, however, comes from the Civil Aviation Authority of the Philippines, or CAAP, where utility workers, individuals with minimal formal qualifications, were prioritized for media and literacy training. Basically, this groundbreaking initiative equipped them with practical skills like computer use, encoding, and filing. As a result, these workers gained employability and an opportunity to actually transition into higher paying jobs. Hence, this initiative highlights a critical point, which is pagdating sa pag-address ng gantong cases like poverty, kinakailangan pa rin talaga natin ng equitable strategies that focus on empowering the marginalized sectors or groups. And therefore, implementing similar approaches at the local government level through a whole-of-governance approach, mas mabibigyan ng daan ng bansa at ang mamamayan patungo sa mas pangmatagalan at pangkalahatan na paglago ng ekonomiya. Now highlighted in my policy amendment proposal are these key points. First, unemployment and underemployment among low-skilled workers. Despite the existence of government livelihood programs, low-skilled workers such as utility workers, day laborers, and contractual employees, sinasabi dito na mas vulnerable pa rin talaga sila when it comes to underemployment and job loss, since marami ang nag-engage sa unstable, low-paying roles that do not actually provide long-term financial security. Hence, this persistent issue highlights the need for targeted interventions that specifically address the plight of workers without stable career paths. Second, focusing on marginalized sectors. Marginalized groups, including low-skilled workers, are often overlooked in training programs due to biases favoring those with formal education or credentials. Now, prioritizing these sectors is not just an ethical obligation but a practical strategy to actually promote inclusive development by empowering disadvantaged workers, organizations, and local governments. Marireduce natin yung socio-economic gaps and inequalities sa bansa. Third, credentials and qualifications as barriers to opportunity. Many low-skilled workers lack formal qualifications such as college degrees or certifications like civil service eligibility. With that being said, yung mga credentials na ganito ay hindi madadenay na nagsiserve as barriers na nagpe-prevent sa kanila from accessing better employment opportunities. And kapag walang targeted support, these workers will remain confined to low-paying jobs, perpetuating a cycle of poverty. Therefore, addressing these barriers through skills development programs can unlock pathways to career growth in the economy. Fourth, importance of media and literacy skills in modern workforce. Now, in today's digital economy, basic skills such as computer literacy, encoding, and file management are essential for employability. And those skilled workers often lack access sa mga gantong training that equips them with these critical competencies. With that, by enhancing their media and literacy skills, yung mga individuals na ito, they can gain the tools needed sa pag-transition into better paying jobs as well as ma-adapt yung mga demands ng evolving workforce. Fifth, addressing poverty through equity-driven initiatives. Equity-driven approaches focus on reallocating resources and opportunities to those with greatest needs. In the case of CAAP, yung pag-prioritize nila sa utility workers for training programs demonstrated that strategic investments in marginalized sectors can have far-reaching impacts. Such initiatives address both immediate employment challenges and long-term poverty reduction by improving access to stable job opportunities. Sixth, role of the government and organizational leadership in skill development. Now, leadership plays a crucial role in creating inclusive and impactful development strategies. Local governments and organizations have the capacity to design and implement targeted skills training programs by ensuring that marginalized workers receive priority support. These leaders basically can foster equitable growth and demonstrate accountability in addressing poverty and unemployment. And lastly, public-private sector collaboration in capacity building. Effective skills development often requires collaboration between the local government units, private organizations, and other stakeholders. Since yung mga partnership na ito ay nakakatulong when it comes to resource sharing, program scalability, sustainable capacity building efforts, and through combined efforts. Basically, these stakeholders, they can amplify the reach and impact skills development initiatives by ensuring long-term benefits for marginalized workers. Now, when it comes to its relevance to the local government code or RA 7160, basically yung RA 7160 mandates LGUs to promote equitable economic development, but still may kakulangan pa rin when it comes to its implementations. Therefore, I would like to propose an amendment through this policy analysis and research to specific provisions to institutionalize skills training for marginalized groups, which will ensure that poverty and unemployment are addressed more inclusively and effectively. In addressing unemployment and poverty through prioritized skills development for marginalized sectors, basically several provisions within the local government code or RA 7160 are particularly relevant to this research. Pertaining to provision 16 or the general welfare clause, section 17 or the livelihood employment development. We also have section 106 and section 34 or the local economic development and employment prioritization. We also have section 205 and section 109 or equity focused public spending. We also have section 386 and section 17 again or prioritization of marginalized sector. Then lastly, we have section 18 or the local revenue generation and resource allocation. So apparently, these provisions within RA 7160 provide a robust framework for implementing skills development initiatives that target marginalized workers, in which by aligning the proposed amendments with these provisions, we can ensure that low-skilled workers receive the training and support necessary to break free from the cycle of poverty and underemployment, creating a more equitable and prosperous society for all. Now, at this point, let us proceed to the goals of this policy amendment proposal and its key areas. So, the goal of this policy proposal is basically to prioritize low-skilled workers in local training and the capacity building programs to address poverty and unemployment. Now, how do we do it? Basically by providing these marginalized groups with essential skills such as basic computer literacy skills and like filing and coding. Basically, the proposal aims to enhance their employability and promote inclusive economic growth. Now, with this approach, it will ensure equal opportunities for social mobility, breaking the cycle of poverty and creating more equitable society. Now, for key area number 1, equity-driven training initiatives, basically this key area is related to section 17, subsection C, which requires LGUs to provide employment, facilitation, and skills development. So how do we address it? Basically, it could be addressed by adding a provision that explicitly prioritizes marginalized groups such as utility workers and low-skilled individuals in LGU-led capacity building programs. First, we identify the target groups, which requires LGUs to conduct community-based assessments regularly to identify marginalized sectors for targeted skills development. Then we amend training mandates, specify that LGUs must implement inclusive programs focusing on literacy, digital skills, and employability for marginalized groups. Allocate training slots, mandate that a set of percentage of LGU training slots, for example 60%, be reserved for marginalized workers. And lastly, incentivize participation, add a clause encouraging LGU to provide allowances and transportation support to marginalized individuals attending training sessions. Now, for key area number 2, which is budget allocation for marginalized groups, basically it is relevant in section 305 subsection 1, which specifies the allocation of resources for basic services including training and development. So how do we adjust it? Simply by inserting a requirement that fix a percentage, for example, 10 to 15% of LGU training budgets be dedicated to capacity building programs for marginalized groups. Basically, we adjusted to earmark budgets, amend the code to require LGUs to allocate a portion training funds specifically for marginalized groups, strengthen transparency, introduce provisions that require LGUs to publish reports on training expenditures, ensuring accountability, encouraging supplemental funding, mandate collaboration between LGUs and national agencies, for example, the Department of Labor and Employment, and Education or Technical Education and Skills Development Authority or TESDA to maximize funding for training programs. And lastly, audit mechanisms, establish an oversight committee to monitor and evaluate the sufficiency and effectiveness of the budget allocation for the marginalized sectors. And the third key area, public-private sector partnerships, basically this is related to section 34 that allows LGUs to collaborate with NGOs and private organizations to enhance service delivery. So how do you address it? Basically by revising the provision to explicitly prioritize partnerships aimed at creating employment opportunities and providing skills development for marginalized sectors. First, we strengthen the collaboration, require LGUs to establish MOS or MOA or memoranda of agreement with private companies and in industries associations focusing on training and job placement for marginalized groups. Next is provide incentives, basically amend the code to include tax benefits or other incentives for private companies that collaborate with LGUs on capacity building initiatives. Next is basically implement joint programs, mandate the creation of apprenticeship and internship programs tailored to local industry needs in collaboration with the private sector. And lastly, establish job matching mechanisms, include a provision for LGUs to organize job fairs or create digital platforms to connect trained individuals with private employers. So to summarize it, basically the objectives of this policy amendment proposal is to address poverty and employment by equipping marginalized workers with relevant skills, institutionalize equity in LGU training programs to ensure inclusivity. Number 3, foster economic development and social mobility through public-private collaboration, emphasizing on its key points, which is to amend RA 7160 to prioritize marginalized groups in LGU training programs, require a percentage of LGU budgets to be allocated to equitable capacity building initiatives, and strengthen partnerships with private organizations for employment and skills development opportunities, following its expected outcomes, which are basically improve employability and career prospects for low-skilled workers, reduce poverty rates and increase local employment, and lastly, enhance reputation of LGUs as champions of inclusive development. With this, along with integrating related sustainable development goals, which are SDG 1, SDG 8, SDG 10, and SDG 17, with SDG 1, which is no poverty, by prioritizing marginalized workers in training programs, we can address poverty alleviation at its core. SDG 8, decent work and economic growth by productive employment and equitable access to economic opportunities. SDG 10, reduce inequalities by focusing on reducing disparities by empowering disadvantaged groups through skills training. And lastly, SDG 17, partnerships for the goals. By encouraging collaboration between LGUs and private organizations ensure sustainable and impactful outcomes. Hence, this proposal ensures that it also contributes to global efforts towards sustainable development. Now, as I end this proposal, I want us to remember that progress is not measured by economic growth, but by how we uplift those who are often left behind. Low-skilled workers are not just numbers or rows. They're individuals with dreams, families, and untapped potential. They deserve the chance to build better lives, to be recognized for their contributions, and to access opportunities that can transform their futures. Because those skilled workers deserve an opportunity too, not as a privilege, but as a right. And by integrating this in a whole-of-governance approach, we can create a system that values equity, promotes inclusion, and ensures that no one is left behind in our pursuit for a better nation. That ends my presentation of my policy amendment proposal. Again, I am Jennaiah Dominique Oximoso. Thank you.